Italian wine is strongly linked with the different production territories, with the native vines, with our millenary history. Italian wine is culture, art, tradition, landscapes, cooperation, biodiversity. Italy is the first country in the world for wine production. The average production is 36 million hectoliters per year. There are 650,000 hectares of vineyards, of which about 110,000 hectares are in organic cultivation. 11 billion in production turnover, of which 6.3 from exports. 20 million hectoliters of wines exported to 130 countries. 15 billion total turnover. In the world, 1 bottle out of 5 of exported wine is made in Italy. Wine is the main ambassador of Made in Italy agri-food in the world. In Italy, there are 200,000 companies operating in the sector, of which 3,000 wine producers and over 1 billion employees. Italy ranks first in the world for the number of labels guaranteeing the quality and origin of a wine. 76 controlled and guaranteed designation of origin, and 332 controlled designation of origin have been recognized. 118 typical geographical indication, and 608 different registered wine grape varieties, of which over 550 are native. The history of Italian wine is the history of an indissoluble bond. The territory and the people who with their work take care of it. The history of Italian wine is a history of excellence.
Well, good evening. Good evening, Milano, and I think good afternoon in New York. Today, this is the second of the 6 masterclass about Italian wine, organized by Coldiretti here in the Milano Wine Week. And our goal is to show you the diversity that our country can offer about wines. As you see in the video, as the video says, wine for us is culture. Wine for us, more than over, is a way of life. It's a way to spend time together. It's a way to enjoy the food. It's a way to share most of everything. And today we have with me a lot of producers that will describe their territories. They will describe the wineries, their way to work. I think this is the best occasion to know, to understand better a wine, to know who produced that wines. And about the first wine, we are in Emilia-Romagna, in the north of Italy. Modena, imagine, is the richest Italian province of product DOP and EGT. And we have a straight connection with the 2020 winery today. I think we have a Zoom connection, am I right? Okay? Okay, so they can take the word and describe their winery and their wines.
The winery, and we are in the full of harvest in the middle, so I'm the last person remaining inside the winery at this time. We have a new winery near Modena, so we got 45 hectares of land and 30 with vineyards. And for us, it's really important the native grapes, so the grapes like Lambrusco Sorvara, Lambrusco Spoleto, Lotta, and today you got tasting our Lambrusco Modern Doc that is produced 100% with Lambrusco Bar. I think in this period important some elements that for us are really important, like the organic certification. We are organic since harvest of 2019, but today in the masterclass you got the last product of 2018. In fact, we produce only sparkling wine with method. So we got 24 months of refinement inside the bottle. The reason you are tasting a 2018 bottle. And so I said we are organic, but for us is really important sustainability too. In fact, we installed 52 kilowatt of photovoltaic panels, and we got a drip irrigation system and a recovery machine for the treatments inside the vineyard. I don't know if it could be interesting talking about the wine you're tasting or something about us, because we are maybe one of the most important value of our winery is the family. In fact, is 100% a family business. I said before, I'm the winemaker. My older brother follow all administration inside the winery. My father usually follow this occasion and the commercial part, but today is out is countryside, and I don't know, maybe last element important about our wines is the content of sulfites. In fact, in all our labels is okay. I didn't read that my speaking is not so good. You can listen me now?
Un pochino, kind of. Not
Okay.
perfectly.
Okay, I try to stay near to computer. It's better?
Yes, I think.
Okay, so I said that we got some slides so about Lambrusco. Lambrusco is a family of different varieties. In fact, the family of Lambrusco got inside a lot of variety. So in our case, we are near Modena, so the most important Lambrusco are Lambrusco of Sorbara and Lambrusco of Salamino, but we got other variety like Lambrusco Maestri, Marani, or there are, I think, 13 or 14 kind of Lambrusco. And Lambrusco of Sorbara usually is vinified like sparkling wine, and is maybe has got the most important, yes, in this case is our Lambrusco of Sorbara sparkling. And what I said before is a Champenois method, and it stay 7 months inside still of refinement after the first fermentation, and after we got a second fermentation inside the bottle, and they stay 24 months inside the bottle with refinement yeast. For us, it's not really important to obtain complexity in sparkling wine, but it's a process to obtain elegance, fine aromas, and to valorize the variety aroma like red fruit or floral notes. And we got a really clay land, so in the months you can feel and taste the minerality of the soil. And for the pairing, I think that Lambrusco of Sorbara could be tasting with a lot of possibility. I read here pizza or sushi is right, but I can say that with prosciutto, salame, or pasta is good too. I don't know if you wanna add something because I say some little things about our winery because for us it was really important to be present today. But I said before, my English is not perfect. I'm the winemaker in the winery, so I don't usually do these presentations. But I said it's a family business, so sometimes we do all we have to do.
Question for you. I don't know if I lose some of your words, maybe because in some point we don't listen to you perfectly. But what I want to ask you is why you choose the Champenoise method. You are in an area where the Champenoise method is not really the tradition. You have more the tradition of Charmat method or simply sparkling wine. Why this choice?
Okay. Maybe if for you it's okay, I speak Italian and you can translate. Maybe I don't know if for you is right. No. Okay. Maybe I try to speak English and after if you don't understand something, please say me if I'm not clear. It's okay. And
yeah.
about the motivation is because Lambrusco, the ground of Lambrusco is known in the world for Charmat method, but there are a lot of winery that since 10 years ago, I think, start producing Champenois method for really valorize our ground and our variety. So I said before, Champenois method in a lot of regions in the world is a process to obtain complexity in the wine. For us, is not this the mission. For us, is a process to obtain salubrity, freshness, and elegance. In fact, the long contact with yeast permits us to add really low content of sulfites, and longevity of our wines is for the natural process, the natural refinement on the yeast. So this long period on the yeast give a body structure to the wine, but elegance too, and longevity. And we think that is the best process or method to obtain the maximum for the grapes, for the natural grapes. In fact, if you are testing the wine, you will feel every varietal aromas like red fruit or floral notes that are only more elegant, got more elegance and maybe fine notes.
Very much for this demonstration that Lambrusco grape it's actually perfect for a Champenoise method, and it's not just a grape to use for easy sparkling wine, but we can imagine it for an important sparkling wine like this. Thank you to 2020, and we have a good evening and see you soon. Thank you. We can go on with our testing. We have a lot of wine to test this night, so we need to go a little bit more faster. And for the second wine, we move in Lombardy, near the Garda Lake. And no, non mi hanno dato il giusto vino. No problem, we don't have the right slide, but we have another sparkling wine at this point. That there is Testa Rossa. Oltre Poppavese, we are in Lombardy, in the south west of Lombardy, and it's a small area. Sì, non hanno messo la nuova versione delle slide. Non fa niente, sopravviveremo anche senza. We can survive without the slides, no problem. It's not the wine that you are seeing on the screen. This one is the next wine. We have another sparkling wine. We are in Oltre Poppavese, and the grape is Pinot Noir. Of course, Pinot Noir is the most important, one of the most important grape of Oltre Poppavese. Is the pink area in the south of Lombardy. And if you can watch it, it has a perfect shape of a grape, of a bunch. Maybe it's a signal that it's a good area for to produce wine. And the winery work with Pinot Noir. And Pinot Noir, it's an ancient grape. One of the ancient grapes that we have is the father, the spiritual father of every Pinot. Pinot Gris and Pinot Blanc, they all come from Pinot Noir. It's a delicate grape. The bunch is really small and berries are really close to one another. So one of the biggest problems of this grape is the mold. It needs wind to dry the humidity that can stop inside the bunch. But it's a grape that it can give incredible results. If you think about the most important Pinot Noir in the world, of course, you go in Burgundy, for example, or in Champagne for sparkling wine. In Italy, we have a good example, not just in Oltrepo Pavese, but in Alto Adige too. But in Oltrepo Pavese, they traditionally use this grape to produce sparkling wine. And today, we have another Champenoise method, just Pinot Noir grape as the DOCG Oltrepo Pavese Champenoise method-esque, of course. And is a white fermentation of this grape, of Pinot Noir. 36 months on the yeast in the glass, and you can find this beautiful pale color, but there are some shadows of gold inside the glass. The bubbles are small, are tiny, and that demonstrates the long period that this wine spent on the yeast. On the nose, here's the Pinot Noir from Oltrepo. It's a good example of the potential of this grape in this territory with small red berries. This iodine test, iodine smell that you can find. Imagine that the breeze of the sea cross the region and arrive directly in this area. So it's possible that the wines that come from Oltrepo Pavese has this hint of sea breeze, of iodine sensation. There is just an idea of herbs, for example, a green part like some grass, some fresh grass. Have a sip. On the palate, the wine is really smooth. The bubbles are kind of creamy. The sensation is a creamy sensation inside the mouth, but then arrives this acidity. You can feel your mouth full of saliva that clean perfectly the bubble sensation inside the mouth. And this small red berry comes back in the end of the palate. The finish have this bitter sensation, a little bitter sensation, but it's a pleasure to drink this wine. How can we pair a wine like this? Of course, I can imagine it, for example, for a sushi night. Sushi and sashimi could be perfect with this kind of wine. Or why not with a plate of cold cuts? Italian cold cuts could be a good idea. We can't use strong plate on a wine like this because it's kind of delicate. It has a good intensity, but not so heavy. So go light. For an aperitif too could be a good choice, a perfect choice. We finish our round of sparkling wine, and we start with our white wine of tonight. And we are in Lombardy, but in another area of Lombardy, because we are going to test Lugana. Lugana, it's a special territory because it's a DOC in common between Lombardy and Veneto. And the common part of these two regions is the Garda Lake. Garda Lake creates a special microclimate. Imagine that we are in the middle of the continental climate, but around the lake we have the Mediterranean climate, and you can find olive trees, you can find orange trees. But more than me, better to introduce this wine, the producer, so I leave the words to Perla del Garda. Thank you.
Buonasera a tutti.
Dovrebbe essere acceso, sì.
Buonasera a tutti, sono Giovanna Prandini, produttrice di Perla del Garda e stasera assaggeremo insieme il nostro vino biologico.
Parliamo così, io traduco.
Mi sono dimenticata di partire con l'inglese.
Vuoi andare in inglese?
Allora, yeah.
Perfetto, ok.
Okay, sorry, it's Giovanna Prandini. I am the producer of Perla del Garda, and we are going to taste Bio 2020, so a young version of Lugana. We are a farm. We don't buy grapes. We don't buy wines. We produce wine only from our grapes, and we are in the southern part of the Lugana area. We are on the hills, so it's a very windy area, and this is very typical of us. We are just few producers in that area. It is very stony, so also the soil is different. And we own a property of 40 hectares based in Lonato del Garda. That is one of the 5 villages where you could produce Lugana. Bio has been the first wine to get the certification of organic. We have been certified as a sustainable winery, and the organic transition is very interesting for us. At the moment, we only have 8 hectares with a certification, but we are trying to understand more and to go on this path.
Okay, if you want to tell us something about the Turbiana grape, this special grape that you have in this area, just in this area.
Yeah, Turbiana is a native grape, so it's very interesting for us to get a vinification of this grape alone without any blending. And Turbiana is in the big family of Trebbiano, but is very similar to Verdicchio. So as Veronelli used to say, it's a grape that could give wines very nice, easy drinkable when they are young, but with a great complexity in longevity. So the grape is very similar to Trebbiano di Soave as well, that is different from Garganega, and is very interesting the development of the grape in the area of Lake Garda, because as you know, the climatic situation is very peculiar of the area, so we have also some fruits very typical of the Lake Garda, or olive trees and production typical of this particular situation where it's never too cold or too hot. And also in summertime, we have a very good excursion of temperatures. So this is very important for white wines because we could get an interesting complexity.
Okay, go on the glass. This is the wine that we are going to test. Turbiana, 100%, of course, just still on fermentation and aging. And go on the glass. This is, I think, the common color of Turbiana, this intense yellow. But what I noticed inside this glass is the brightness of the glass. That makes me imagine the acidity that we will find inside this glass. On the nose, the beautiful flavors of Turbiana start with this floral sensation, with this hint of jasmine, just a light jasmine, some chamomile too, dry chamomile, and then arrive the fruity part with this yellow plume, like a not too ripe yellow plume. Some asparagus too, that give a kind of elegance to this wine. And this minerality, this is the typical minerality of this area, a kind of sulfur minerality. Have a sip of this wine. The palate plays on this good balance between the glycerin part if you move your tongue on your palate, you can almost feel this film leaves by the glycerin. But at the same time, we have a good acidity that can sustain this smooth part of the wine. The finish is long, is full, and all the perfumes that we felt at the nose come back at the end of this wine. Do you want to add something about the testing?
What I could say is the fact that it's made in a single vineyard. So this vineyard is very interesting for us because it has less fruitiness and more balsamic aromas. The typical Mediterranean herbs we use for cooking, for example. And what is interesting as well is the fact that sometimes they ask me if we have some fermentation or aging in barrique, because there is a very light almond note. But it's typical of Turbiana in the aging, so no oak, only stainless steel tanks fermentation and aging, but a long period on the lees. So we try to get complexity without using oak and try to express what is typical of this vineyard, so this balsamic part.
Thank you very much to share this wine with us. And we move on to the next white wine. And we are going to visit the Campania region. We are in the Sannio DOP, a big DOP in the inside part of Campania. Forget the sea, the beaches, the Capri idea. We are in another area. We are on the mountain. Here the hills are really high. The climate is cold. You are in a kind of mountain climate. So the Falanghina have different aspect from the Falanghina of the sea, of the beaches, of course. And the Sannio is a really ancient area for the cultivation of the vines. And the winery that we are going to test is La Guardiense, that is a cooperative. So it's a big group. They start with 33 members, now they have about 1,000 members. And they have a really interesting project called Wine Research Team, led by Riccardo Cotarella. And their goals is to produce wine, good wine, high-level wines, without add any sulfur. So it's a challenge, of course, but they are working really good, and the whole experimentation are going really good. So we will try their wine in the future. And the grape that we are going to test, it's Falanghina grape. It's one of the most famous Italian grapes. And we have a big production in the 80s, in the 90s. Then there was like a down of this grape that nowadays it's finding a new life overall in this different area, in the inside area of Campania. The word Falanghina probably comes from phalanx, that is phalange, that is the pole that they usually use to prune this grape. And the wine that we are going to test, it's a 100% Falanghina, just in still, of course, longevity no more than 3 or 4 years about. And let's see what we have in the glass. The color is a straight pale yellow with some hints of golden inside. On the nose, you can smell a different idea of Falanghina. When we usually test Falanghina from the coast, that is more hot, more smooth, more ripe at the nose. Here we can find another version of this variety, more austere, where the minerality is more connected not to the iodine testis, but to the tough testis. That is a typical kind of soil that we can find in this area. There is a green part, like grass, a fresh grass. some hint of peach, an idea of citrus like lemon peels, some lime, something about the tropical fruit, a passion fruit. Have a sip. On the palate, we can find the mountain, the connection with the mountain, with its acidity. We have high acidity. It's a full-bodied wine. It has this long finish, savory finish. The salty part arrive in the last part of the sip, and it's a kind of a way to clear our mouth, to finish the sip with this savory part that give us the opportunity to have another sip. It's an easy wine to drink, but not too easy to pair. You can't use this kind of falanghina as we usually use falanghina for aperitif, with some chips, with some olives, and no more. This falanghina needs something more strong. For example, a good pairing could be with a mozzarella di bufala, with a fat plate that has this acidity connection that cleans the mouth from the fat part of mozzarella, the aromatic part of this special milk, buffalo milk, with this intensity of the wine, or with fried fishes, for example, could be a good pairing too. Pasta with vegetables, pasta with zucchini, or pasta with pesto. So it's a wine that have to enjoy the table, have to enjoy the food. Hope you can hope you can understand the real difference between falanghina of the coast and falanghina of the mountain, because there are two really different versions of this wine, and I think it's really interesting to try this coldest version of this wine. We move on, and we are going to test our third white wine. We are in Abruzzo. The winery is Talamonti, so they will tell us something about their wines. Of course, I bring you the ice cream. And Trebbiano d'Abruzzo, it's a DOC that covered the entire region of Abruzzo to show how important these grapes is for this region, of course. You are local in Loreto Abruzino, that is one of the most important area for the production of Trebbiano. Please.
Buonasera. Yeah. Good evening. Yes, my name is Sergio, and I look after the export in Europe for Tenuta Talamonti. We are a family-owned winery, fairly young. We started around 20 years ago. Actually, this year is our 20th anniversary. We are in the municipality of Loreto Abruzino, very well known for the Trebbiano d'Abruzzo, and this is the wine that we are actually showing here tonight. We are around 20 kilometers from the Adriatic Sea, from the town of Pescara, and of course, in our vineyards, you will always have this nice and fresh breeze, but we also benefit a lot from the fact that on our west we have the Gran Sasso Mountains, so a lot of temperature excursions during the summer definitely helps neutralize the effect of the heat that we have during the summer. One important thing would be for us to remind us we are a certified sustainable winery. We do believe that it is important for us to make sure that the future generation can benefit from the work we're doing now. It's not only about us, but it's also about the future. Our wines are all vegan certified, and most importantly, we share the area with important producers of Trebbiano d'Abruzzo, like Ciavolic, like Valentini, like Torre dei Beati, and in this particular reproduction of Trebbiano d'Abruzzo, in this particular example of Trebbiano d'Abruzzo, we are tasting a wine that is a cru of 1 hectare from a vineyard of 4 hectares. This cru is produced only in the very best vintages. In the last 20 years, we only produced this 9 times. So we really focus on trying to maximize the best out of the climate and the area and the grape variety when it gives us the best. The difference of work that we do here is, of course, the fact that Trebbiano d'Abruzzo, in this case, is aged partially in oak. Actually, we ferment 30% sur lie with the batonnage process, but we want to make sure that we maintain the pureness and the freshness of Trebbiano d'Abruzzo. Trebbiano d'Abruzzo is part of the large family of Trebbiano that is cultivated all over Europe. We must not forget that our cousins in France call it Uniblanc, but it's still Trebbiano. But in our area, Trebbiano d'Abruzzo benefits a lot, I believe, from also the fact that we have a particular terroir that is part red clay and part calcareous, and of course red clay can give too much power, but the calcareous part, it's important to maintain the elegance of the wine. I don't know if you want to move on to to taste the wine,
of course.
And I think that's the best way to express, to show the expression of the wine.
I think that the batonnage that you tell was really important to the complexity that we will find inside the glass. This gold yellow, beautiful gold yellow, straight gold yellow, and really lightening inside the glass. On the nose you can find a deep wine with the starter. It's like a spicy starter with a kind of idea of saffron, of white pepper, of ginger, dry ginger too. Then the floral part arrives, but it's not just a fresh flower. It seems more a dried flower. There is the elegance of a potpourri, a kind of potpourri of flower. And this beautiful fruity part of tropical, like mango, like pineapple, sweet pineapple, ripe pineapple. And on the end of this nose arrive this beautiful minerality that give it, that power the wines.
Don't forget, this is a wine that can age easily 10 years. That can age easily 10 years. Mm-hmm. We are tasting at the winery at present 2011 vintage. That's
2011 vintage.
Absolutely, yeah.
This is the demonstration that Trebbiano, it's a great that you can buy a bottle and forget it in your cellar and take off after 10 years with no problem, like today. Have a sip of this wine. It's funny because I think that in the mouth this wine looks like a red wine. It's bold and full and have this idea of astringency, a little idea of tannins, that it's a pleasure to find a wine so full mouth wine. There's a kind of buttery part in the mouth. And in the end, all the fruity part comes back fully the mouth until this balsamic end. The balsamic part kind of arrived just in the second part of the sip. But the fact is that this wine in 10 years doesn't lost any acidity. For this reason, it's so drinkable. It's a full body, but drinkable at the same time. When we work with a wine like this, we can just think about white wine with fish. This is not a wine made for fish, I think. It's wine with, you can pair with a roast beef, for example, or with a...
You mentioned saffron. The region, Abruzzo, is known for its saffron, so definitely a saffron risotto is what you want, also you would want to taste here, to drink this with.
Be careful, we are in Milano. Don't talk about saffron, risotto with saffron in Milano. But, of course, could be perfect.
It is produced very well in Abruzzo.
I see this wine with white meats or with important fishes, with important plot of fishes. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to drink aged white wine, not everyday experience. Going on, we move and we start the Red's Battery. And the first red wine that we are going to test is not this one, because we already tasted it and was a sparkling wine. But we are in Lombardia and we are going to visit a very special area of Lombardia. Every time that I meet a wine from Valtellina, this special DOCG, I think that the producer of Valtellina are just crazy, because you work in a so difficult condition. The slopes are kind of crazy ugly, and you have to do everything just with your hands. We can't use anything else that your hands.
Yeah, exactly.
To introduce this territory, we have La Spia Winery with their Valtellina Superiore.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Good evening and good afternoon for our American friends. I'm Gianmarco. I'm here for La Spia Winery. I'm the sales manager of the winery. Unfortunately, not the winemaker. I would love to become one day a winemaker too, because working in a winery, you see the passion of the work, and I think it's something special, especially in a territory like Valtellina. Valtellina, as she said before, is right beyond the Alps. We are working straight in the mountains with very high and deep slopes. We are is also quite a small territory, because we produce in whole Valtellina like 3 million bottles per year, which is a quite small number compared to other biggest territory all over Italy. And especially also our winery is even smaller, because we produce 25,000 bottles per year, but you have to know that everything, believe me, is handmade. Also the harvest, well, probably the crushing is not handmade or fit made, as they were doing before. But yeah, is a high quality territory actually, and I think in the next years Valtellina will become one of the most renowned area in Italy, because even if it's quite sad to say, but the climate changing is actually helping our territory, because the grapes are getting more and more mature, more and more ready to express itself at its best. And today we are gonna try our Sassella. Sassella is a specific cru in the Valtellina area. There are 5 cru in Valtellina, which are Maroggia, Valgella, Grumello, and the 2 probably most renowned, which are Sassella and Inferno. We are in the Sassella area, as I said before, and in Valtellina, as you can see in the slide, we produce Nebbiolo grapes, or Chiavennasca, as we call it in Valtellina, which is mainly a dialectical word to express the grapes that is the best in Valtellina. And probably, I don't know if there are some Piedmontese here, but I've read that Nebbiolo actually originated in Valtellina and then arrived in Piedmont and became famous probably in Piemonte. Nebbiolo is a great one of my favorite grapes, and one of the greatest, in my opinion, of course, grapes in Italy. Is a high acidity and high tannin grapes. It can last for very long time, and yeah, is a wonderful grape.
And we are going to try your Valtellina Superiore, so Chiavennasca, 100%, yeah. Of course. The fermentation is still, am I right?
Yeah,
but the aging is 2 years in big barrels,
Yeah,
like
exactly,
the
from-
traditionesques, the big
Yeah.
barrels and not the barrique.
from 10 to 30 hectoliters approximately.
And I think in the glass we can find the perfect example of the color of Nebbiolo. It's not compact wine. When we talk about Nebbiolo, remember that it's a kind of transparent wine. And I think that gives a lot of charm to look a wine like this. There is this ruby red, but with this hint of garnet inside the glass. And if you go on the nose, this is a Nebbiolo from the mountain, really different from Nebbiolo of Langhe, really different from Nebbiolo of Roero. Here you can find the smell of the mountains. The herbs of the mountains are inside the glass. There's the iron part, like game, like red iron, like blood, that is really interesting on the nose. And this floral part that talks about violet and small roses, wild roses too. This kind of wet earth that it's a fascinating nose, I think. Have a sip. In the mouth too. Which vintage is this? Sorry?
2016.
2016.
So quite a baby. So.
Yes, it's kind of young, and you can feel in the mouth the youngness of this wine because the tannins are still young and fresh and dried mouth, but this acidity helps us to produce saliva and to balance this tannins side. It's drinkable, it's young but already drinkable. Of course, I would like to try this wine in 5-7 years and see what happens inside the glass. A long finish, finish with this orange peel that is really interesting, like orange juice at the end of the sip. And these balsamic mountain parts. Want to add something about the testing?
Well, you said almost everything. Yeah. No, okay.
Okay. Yeah, perfect.
I wouldn't add anything.
And about the pairing with this wine, we have to use the tannins, we have to use the acidity, so we can use succulent splat, like for example a roast, a pig's belly, or a BBQ, for example. I see a wine like this during a BBQ, during a barbecue on Sunday, could be perfect enjoying a wine like this. Thank you very much to share your wine with us. And we are running in another region. We come back in Campania, in the area of Benevento, and the location is Sagno, the same location of Falanghina. So we are in the inside part of Campania, on the mountain of this region. And the grape that we are going to test is Aglianico. Aglianico is one of the most important red grapes that we have in Italy, together with Sangiovese and Nebbiolo, of course. And Aglianico is really connected with the south of Italy. We find it in Campania, we find it in Basilicata, for example, and the match with this territory is the soil. It's volcanic soil, because Aglianico loves volcanic soil. And what we are going to test, sorry, I'm too fast, is 100% Aglianico, of course, from the Sagno region. Why not? Yes, it is? Okay, perfect. Maceration on the skin, 22 days, and aging in barrique for 1 year. So here's the oaky part, the smoky part, probably will be really important. And we can find in the glass a different color from the Nebbiolo. Here, the red is more compact. You can't see anything through this wine. And on the nose, it's a wine that kind of open the doors and welcome us with a basket of red berries, blueberries, mulberry, and cherries. This is the first impact that the wine gives to us. Then arrive this toasty part with some chocolate, an idea of coffee, and then arrive the territory part, this volcanic soil that gives this black minerality to this wine, this deep minerality to this wine. Have a sip of Aglianico. Full body, strong, bold, deep, high tannins and high acidity. Of course, this is a common tract between Aglianico Sangiovese and Nebbiolo, acidity and tannins. And this is not a case because the acidity is what assurance to wines a long life. A wine without acidity can't survive. So when they are so young and they have this high level of acidity, we can think about a wine that can be aged for a long time. The tannins are strong, are really present in the mouth, but with no bitter sensation. It's a sweet tannins. And in the end, there is this finish of licorice that gives a bitterness, a pleasure bitterness inside the glass. This is a typical way to work with Aglianico. You have to manage the tannins, and of course you have to manage its strong acidity. And the next red wine that we are going to test, it's another Aglianico, but this one comes from not just from the area of Sannio of Benevento, but comes from the heart of Benevento, that is the area of Taburno, so a special DOCG that we have in Italy. And to talk about this wine, we have La Fortezza, and I think you can describe your territory really better than me, I'm sure about it.
Hello, and nice to meet you here tonight. My name is Antonella Porto. I'm the export manager of this winery called La Fortezza. We are a pretty young company. We have almost something more than 10 years. And we are settled in Campania region, but as we said before, we are not on the seaside. When you talk about Campania, you think about Amalfi Coast, Positano. No way. We are on the land. We are on the mountain, and we are in Taburno area. The place where the company is settled is called Torre Cuso, and the owner of our winery, that is Mr. Enzo Rillo, is a businessman in all other sector, but he is a son of normal person that used to grow grapes, because the typical thing of Torre Cuso, it's that everybody has a small land where they produce grape and they make wine for themselves. And he used to remember his childhood running around the vineyards and making grapes. So he decided almost 10 years ago to start producing wine, because the goal of the winery is to make something that is really related to the terroir, to Torre Cuso land. This is the reason why we just produce wine typical of this area. For white wines, we have Falanghina, Greco, and Fiano. And for reds, we just produce Piedirosso and Aglianico del Taburno. I would like to underline Aglianico del Taburno, that it's totally different from Aglianico that we had before, because the land, the terroir, where this grape is produced, it's different. We are at 500 meters on the sea level, and it's really, really hot during the day, but it's really cold during the summertime. And this difference by day and night it's really something that gives difference to the grapes. Our land are on the hills of Taburno mountain, so they get all the sun during the day. And the land, the underground of our grapes are all rocks. You just can find 50 centimeters of soil, and then you find rocks. And this is something that really helps the aroma of the wine, because it gives this freshness, this minerality that you can feel it in the white wine, but even in the red wine. And I just want to remind that Aglianico del Taburno DOCG is the first and only DOCG of Sannio area. We are a great producer of Falanghina and even other grapes, but we just have only one DOCG.
Move to the wines, move to the glass. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we have this 100% Aglianico. It's a classic red vinification with maceration, malolactic fermentation in oak barrels, and then 10 months in oak between big barrels and small barrels. It's an important choice, I think, for the winery.
It is, because we like to use the wood, so we like to give this sensation to the wine, but we don't want that the wood has to cover the taste of the wine. This is the reason why that we choose different sizes and even different years of oak.
Of course.
Because we do believe that when the wood is too present, maybe you need to delete some mistake of the grape.
Of course. And in the glass, looking at the glass, this ruby red is precious because there is this lights of purple, and it's kind of typical when we talk about Aglianico. And on the nose arrives straight, direct, and it's a kind of explosion, and it has this balsamicity in the first moment, eucalyptus and menthol, and then arrive the spicy part with clove, with black pepper. It's like some licorice too on the nose, but then after this high moment, the wine seemed to go down inside the heart. There is this toasty part, this smoked part, this minerality really connected with this territory, these rocks that we have under the ground. We can perfectly smell it inside the glass. The fruity part is the last part that arrives on our nose, and is like a black currant, is a black fruit, it's not a red fruit. Everything is black in this nose, everything is dark, everything is deep, and I think that this is the charm that this wine brings to our nose. Have a sip. I think you can perfectly feel the difference between the two Aglianicos we tasted. Here, the balance in the mouth is more clear. The tannins are more smooth. The glycerin is more present. The acidity is lower than the other one, but it's perfectly integrated inside the sip. And then it's like a never-ending wine, really long, with this flower sensation on the palate comes at the end, comes back the fruity part, but overall I can feel this smoky and this mineral part in the finish of the wine, a full-bodied wine. Of course, when you think to pair a wine like this, you can say just with meat. Not enough. We need important meat like BBQ red meat, or imagine with lasagna, for example, with a game ragu, not with a simple ragu, or with long cooked meats like a stew, like a brasato, for example. I can imagine a brasato made with this wine. I think should be perfect. Here in Italy is dinner time, so for us talk about this plate is kind of difficult, but we can resist, no problem. Thank you very much, and we move to the next red wine. We come back in Lombardia, non mi hanno invertito le slide. We come back in realtà okay. Here we are in Veneto, and the next wine, it's one of the most famous appellation that we have in Italy. We are talking about Amarone della Valpolicella, and winery is Villa San Carlo. Valpolicella, it's an area on the north of the city of Verona, where the Vinitaly happens kind of almost every year. And the name Valpolicella comes from Latin. It means vallis pollis celle. That literally means valleys from the many wineries. So the Romans understand the potential of this area when we talk about wine, of course. And Villa San Carlo, it's an ancient winery that now produce all the types of Valpolicella wines. The winery is really beautiful, is hidden inside a wood, and here the climate, this ventilate climate. Valpolicella is very special because the hills, usually the hills go from east to west. In Valpolicella change the situation because the hills goes from north to south. So the exposure are kind of perfect in this area, and the wind refresh the grapes inside the vineyard, of course. And when we talk about the most important wines in Italy, when we talk about Barolo, for example, we always connect Barolo to Nebbiolo grape. When we talk about Brunello di Montalcino, we immediately think about the Sangiovese grape. But when we talk about Amarone della Valpolicella, like no one knows the grapes used to produce Amarone. So I want to talk about the Corvina grape. Corvina grape is one of the most important grapes inside the blend of Valpolicella, because when we talk about Valpolicella, we always talk about a blend of grapes. And this is an ancient grape from this area of Veneto, and ripes really late. So it could be a problem for the producer, because in a period like this, could happen that the rains are too strong, for example, and ruin a little the harvest. But it's so important because it's the spine, a kind of spine of Amarone. Amarone is a special wine because of a particular production. It's not just a red wine, it's a red wine produced with dried grapes, but not a sweet wine. Instead of a dry wine, we will try another wine with a similar way to work. And in this case, our Amarone is 45% Corvina, 35% Corvinone, another kind of grape of this area, 10% Rondinella, and the other 10% other varieties of typical of Veneto, of Valpolicella. The unselected grapes rest for a long period to dry in the fruttaio. Fruttaio is the local where they store the grape to dry it. 24 months of maturation after the fermentation in a medium toasted French oak. So the wood is something really important when we talk about Amarone della Valpolicella. 24 months is the minimum period requested by the appellation. And in the glass we have this ruby red color with this beautiful hint of garnet, but the heart is still ruby. And this is This is the nose of a modern Amarone, because it's not too heavy, it's not too jammy. When we push our nose into an Amarone, we always suspect like a jammy wine, but here we can find the freshness of the fruity. This black plume, this mulberry, are still fresh, but there is this maraschino cherry that gives a particular nose to this wine. Then the spicy part, all the spices here are kind of sweet. The cinnamon, first of all, for example. The licorice, but it's not the radix of the licorice. It's like a candy of licorice, pretty different. The toasty part, the chocolate part, the toffee part. So it's a smooth wine on the nose, but not too heavy, not too jammy. Try this wine. What I want to tell you now is that this wine has 15 degrees of alcohol, but the alcohol is perfectly integrated inside the sip. You don't feel the burning part of the alcohol. Most of all, the alcohol, it's a kind of hug that smooths a little the wine. And the glycerin work with the alcohol. The tannins are really low, and this is typical when we talk about Amarone della Valpolicella. But this long finish, this fruity long finish, it's a pleasure. And if I think to pair this wine, I perfectly imagine it, for example, with risotto with gorgonzola, with a strong flavor, or why not with an aged cheeses, with some aged cheeses, with a pulled pork, with important plats, because this wine have a strong structure that have to that can be too heavy on a light plat. So we have to work with important dishes. We come back, and the last wine that we are going to test, we come back in Lombardia. Another crazy producer today from Valtellina. Do you have? Okay.
It's working? Yes.
Yes, it's working. Alberto Marsetti will introduce not just the territory, but the special way to produce the Sfurzat from Valtellina, a particular wine. Thank you.
Yes. First of all, I want to say thank you to Coldiretti and Milano Wine Week organization to be here, because for us it's a great occasion to show you our small area and our small winery. And yes, unfortunately, I'm not the sales manager, but I am the winemaker. And for this reason, I want to say something about our winery. I don't want to be boring about the territory, because Gianmarco, he told you everything very good about our territory. Our cellar is the last one remained in the old part of Sondrio. It is called Scarpatetti. It's a medieval area where Alberto, the owner, it is carrying on the work of his grandfather Angelo and his uncle Antonio from 1986, when he was just 16 years. Today we brought here the Sfurzat, the best known and the most famous denomination that we have in Valtellina. It's the oldest wine that we have in Valtellina, and I know maybe I will say something not new for you, but I want to say the same. And you know, we pick up the grapes in the second 15 days of September, when the bunches of grape are perfect. Like this, we put the grapes, lie it down in the boxes of 5 kilograms, and we age the grapes for 2 months in the fruit larder, where the grapes become like raisin grapes. And after 2 months, we squeeze the grapes, and we last the grapes for the maturation and fermentation for more than 2 months. And we age the wine in the new barrel from France, and well, the small barrel barrique. And it stayed there for at least 3 years, and then we start to sail the wine. And this wine is a powerful wine. Inside you can find something very powerful like alcohol, like tannins, like flavor. You can test whatever you want, I can suppose. But for this reason, maybe for this part can speak her. Maybe.
I just want to show you this image on the slide. I think it's important to understand where they work, because it's really difficult to work in a place like this. I think every harvest it's so important, because every bunch is difficult to take. So thank you for the work you do, because it's not a work for everyone, I think. Thank you very much to preserve a special area like this. When we talk about Valtellina, we talk about viticultura eroica, heroic viticulture, because the work that you do is a work for heroes, of course, with superpowers, I think. And on the glass, we find the typical color, the beautiful color of Nebbiolo. But here we lost the ruby part, and we have the full garnet glass. And the nose is a kind of explosion. Not just the fruity part. Here, the black cherry is it's the star of the nose, but there is a beautiful part of underground radix, the rub harbor, the violet, the mushrooms too. Just a kind of idea of truffles I can smell in this wine. The minerality is dark. And there is this sensation of the wood. It's like a walk in the wood after the rain. It's given me exactly this idea of the wet earth, of the wet trees, the wet wood of the trees. And here the alcohol, it's perfectly integrated in the nose and actually helps the perfumes to reach our nose. I really like this floral part that is typical of the Chiavennasca. The violet is something that I always find in Chiavennasca grape, but here this Chiavennasca is like underground. Everything is underground, and the mushroom part give an important charm, I think, to this wine. Have a sip. I think this is the perfect occasion to understand how the tannins of Chiavennasca works. In the first Chiavennasca the first Nebbiolo that we tried, a young Nebbiolo, the tannins was more strong, the astringency was more present. Here, thanks to the dried of the grape, the tannins are more smooth. The alcohol gives a warm sensation inside the mouth. But as the Nebbiolo grape used to play with this acidity, the high acidity of this wine, make it more drinkable and easy to drink. The alcohol rock and roll. More than 60 degrees of alcohol, perfectly integrated inside the mouth, and in the end comes back this wet sensation, this hurt wet sensation, this raining sensation, this radix sensation, and to finish, to close the sip, this fruity sensation come back, refreshing our mouth. A wine wine that has more than 16 degrees of alcohol, and I want to have another sip. So it's good work. Thank you very much. This is the last wine that we test. I think that we made a kind of small trip inside of the vineyards of our country, and a testing like this can make us to understand the potential that we have in Italy when we talk about wine, and the fact that we can go deep inside our territory to discover not just the kinds of grapes that we have, but most of all the connection between the grapes, the territory, and the person who works inside the vineyard. So thank you very much to share your wine and this night with us. Thank you very much to you for the attention you give to us. Thank you very much, New York, to survive to this testing, and it was a pleasure to share this one with you. Have a good evening, and thank you again. If you have some questions, of course, we are here from New York or from Milano, and we have questions. Okay.
I have a question from Chicago. Yes. How can those of us outside of Italy sell these native Italian wines when many of our guests are familiar with French varieties? And also, they're asking if any of these wineries are looking for importers, because in the Chicago attendees are actually interested in Valtellina and La Fortezza.
Okay. Are you looking for for exporters? I think the first question is which is the best marketing strategy to sell Italian wines when all over the world the most important varieties comes from French?
Okay. The thing is that I can talk about La Fortezza wines. Our goal is to produce wines that are typical from the area, and we want to make good wines just to show people in the other part of the world what is the amazing part of Italy. Everybody talks about made in Italy, but Italy, it's so small, but in the same time, each region are totally different one from the others, and each region has typical and interesting product that are really, really good to be known all over the world. And regarding the second question, and just to finish the first question, of course, about marketing support, our company, it's a company that really helps in marketing. I am really present on market, on the export side. So we used to go and visit our importer, our clients to help people to know this wine because they're not really known.
Of course.
And yes, of course, I'm looking for importer. And at the moment, I'm not working in Chicago and in New York. So I will be glad to start working with somebody there. Thank you.
About the sales, there is the sales manager.
Well, I think that I can speak both for La Spia and Marsetti. We both are looking for an importer. We are not present in New York nor in Chicago, and I would love to come to Chicago and New York and helping you trying to selling our wines. So now, well, of course, I know that probably France has a better known or renowned wines compared to Valtellina, especially, or other small region in Italy. But I think that our wine speaks itself by itself. Is correct. And I think that if you can describe the territory, if you can describe the wine correctly, there will be no problem to sell also a not renowned wine, but with a great character and wonderful flavor, I think.
Thank you. We have another answer. Rigo.
Thank you. About Lugana, what I could say is the fact that, in my opinion, what is working is to find an importer very keen on Italian wines. We have a very good experience in Virginia, Washington, D.C., and Florida. And I think to use a regional card could help producers of Coldiretti, so very keen on the vinification, on the origin of the grapes, to develop a business in US. Because sometimes we are not big enough to be in the list of a big importer, but at the same time we are very keen on our native grape, on our typical production. So we are really looking for someone who is very well educated on Italian wines. Thank you.
I just wanted to add on the marketing of the Italian wines. Just ask yourself, in a world that is already oversaturated in almost every sector, how many Cabernet Sauvignon, how many Sauvignon, how many Chardonnay, how many Syrah or Shiraz, however you want to call it, you can have on a list. But how many Sangiovese, how many Aglianico, how many Nebbiolo, how many Montepulciano, Trebbiano, I don't know. That should be the answer to your question. Italy gives you a unique opportunity to be diverse and to be different. That should be your what you should aim at.
Thank you very much. Other questions? Perfect. Okay. Thank you to share this night with us. Thank you to this beautiful producer to be with us. Thank you and bye. Have a good evening and go on testing Italian wines. Ciao.